Hello everyone, my name is Jose. This is gonna be my XJW story. Um, I'm gonna start with my mom. She was the one that actually introduced us, and ever since she was young, she had problems with her family, and she didn't took it well. She ended up with depression, and she felt uh, intrigued or pretty welcome with the Jehovah Witness organization. Um, she felt that they made her feel welcome. And for what I understand, it was pretty much my grandmother. And my grandmother passed away from cancer while she was still a Jehovah's Witness. Um, we used to live in Puerto Rico. I was born and raised there. So she passed away. And as soon as she was done, my mom felt really, really bad, very emotional. And she always remembers her as one of the best. And she encouraged her to not lose faith, to continue on serving Jehovah, and everything will be fine. Um, and for a little while, that worked. Uh, she had me, my brother, my sisters, and then later on, she ended up divorcing my dad. It was really hard for her. Um, and so we lived in a very separated house. Um, my mom after that didn't want to talk to my dad, so he wasn't really around. It was always my mom, and she wouldn't really allow him to come in and visit us or spend a lot of time with us. And it became very clear that she didn't want us to have any sort of interaction with anybody else later on. There wasn't a Jehovah's Witness. And um, growing up was a little bit different because even though you're not baptized, you behave as a baptized person, and you kind of are a Jehovah's Witness. Most of the time, you have no saying, even though you're bored, even though you don't want to be there, you're a kid. And my mom became very controlling, and I guess her attitude kind of like resonated with what the Jehovah's Witness would do, um, and how they behave. Of, oh, this sort of punishment is good for you. This sort of thing is good for you, and we're gonna have you avoid your entire family because it's good for you. And that's what she did. She avoided all of her family and all sort of influences from the outside, and she encouraged us to do the same thing. And, whenever anything bad would ever happen, that's the go-to line. It's like, oh, you gotta avoid going out with those little kids or XY family member, and that's what we did. That's how we were raised. We were born into it, and as soon as we were, I was in seventh grade. I was around like 13 years old. My sister was 17. My eldest sister, she decided to get baptized. At this time, she was dating this uh, brother that was a leader in the congregation, and they were getting along pretty well. But I guess that people started picking up that my sister wasn't baptized and he was a ministerial servant, so that's a no-no. And they started going out, um, and she decided to get baptized because she wanted to be with him, and that was pretty much her motivation. And I decided to baptize with her, so we got baptized the same day. Um, After we baptized, the boyfriend came around saying that he couldn't have a relationship with her no more. I'm not so sure where all that came from, but it seemed like either the elders or maybe some of the brothers kind of like encouraged him to not do anything with her and let her grow spiritually or something like that. And she also got some depression out of that situation. She really got real bad, and after that she decided to move out of the house. My mom didn't know how to really console her and find ways to make her feel she was welcome and whatnot. My mom is not the sort of person that takes anyone that might do anything in a very light way. And she pushed away my sister. Pushing away my sister, she ended up moving with my other family members that were not Jehovah's Witness. So my sister left really early, and I never understood really what was the reason, what really happened, 100%. But it was a hard situation, and then other conditions happened throughout life, and we could just kept moving and moving and moving, and we were never stable in one place. Not the sort of person that has this one childhood friend from 20, 13 years ago, and we grew up together and stayed together. That was never the case. We were always moving around different schools, different neighborhoods, different houses. There was always a need to move around. So we ended up moving around. We ended up going to many congregations, and after many years, we ended up in the northern part of the island of Puerto Rico, and we lived there for quite a while. Then my mom got disfellowship because she ended up falling in love with the now husband that she has, and she decided to move to Florida with him, and that's what she did. But I decided to stay behind, and I was about 19 years old. I grew up with a lot of rage because I never really understood the world, and I never really understood many of the things that were happening around me. So emotionally, I wasn't really capable or really ready for many things, and just I decided to take the step, and I said, well, I'm gonna have my own apartment, I'm gonna have my own job, I'm gonna trust in Jehovah that everything's gonna be fine. Sure enough, I decided to stay. And about like a year later, I ended up meeting this new young girl that came into the congregation. She was a Bible study, and we ended up liking each other. And I guess some brothers came around concerned about what we were doing or if we were going together somewhere. They brought it up to the elders, and the elders came up and talked to us and whatnot. And I was pretty scared of what could have been the end result of that situation. And somehow they learned that me and her had something going on, and they got us together in the back room. When they got me, they started asking me questions, because they wouldn't ask her questions. She's not baptized. They asked me questions about what was I doing or how was I doing and whatnot, and me being so afraid about what would happen. I told them that me and her were actually together, and after that I got this fellowship. Because we ended up having, so I got this fellowship, and I remember feeling like my entire life was about to be falling apart entirely. I already had the same type of mentality of my mom, and I started pushing away not only friends but also family members. So you know that once you don't have any of those connections outside in the outside world, you're you by yourself, absolutely alone. And so that's what happened. I ended up going through a depression. I tried to pretty much beg to not get this fellowship, and the elder that I talked to, he told me that they were not gonna retract their decision, because the decision is final. And if I ever had any problems, all I had to do is write a letter to the Bethel, and Bethel would decide if the procedures that they did were right or not. and they were the ones that are going to decide if I was going to stay disfellowship or continue in the congregation as rank and file member. And so I kind of saw that, and just because he said that if the procedures were made incorrect for one reason or another, I knew that for sure they were going to see that he was doing everything the way they were supposed to. And I decided not to. So I didn't fought it. I got this fellowship. I ended up in a depression, and I started being unbalanced about how I was doing things, and I got into my head that I didn't want to involve myself in the world anymore that I already had. So I was so afraid of losing the opportunity of getting reestablished 6 months later, because the prodigal son came back to his dad and waited 6 months outside of the camp. No, he didn't. And so when he when I ended up my relationship with the girl, I also tried really hard to avoid having any sort of relationship, and that took my life down to the plunge, because I was all by myself. My family was in Florida, and the ones that were in the island, they weren't really like related to me. So it made me feel like I was dragging down people. It made me feel like me and my own sinful life, or whatever it is that I did, was the cause of everything that was happening to me. But what I didn't understand, I didn't want to understand, is that I needed that sort of connection, and I needed connections that can help me move forward in life. They help me cruise through life and learn. But I didn't want to understand that. So I continued on the same type of mentality for quite a while, and then because I'm so limited, and people in the organization didn't want to talk to me, they didn't want to help me. My car broke down, I was losing money, I couldn't get to work, I couldn't afford my bills. Shortly enough, I wasn't barely eating and not even paying my bills. So I ended up on the streets, pretty much. I had no place to go. So I had to pretty much like ask my dad, that we didn't really had a relationship for many years, to help me stay somewhere at least, so that I can get a job, get on with my life. But finding a job was really hard. It was 2008. The crash had just really recently happened. And if you ever been through the 2008 crash, it was really hard to find a job. At some point, a friend of his was kind of like a supervisor in the security guard company, and he decided that, well, there's this position available, and I'm gonna give it to him. And he gave me that opportunity, and I was really thankful. I started saving money, and bought a cheap car, something simple. At this point, I don't have anything but a backpack with just regular documents, maybe another backpack with some clothes. I didn't have a lot. I was just pretty much up in the air. If it wasn't because I was living in his house, I was literally on the street. And soon enough, after I did that, got a car, I decided to try to do some schooling, to do some computer technician. I did manage to finish it, but by the time I managed to finish it, I ended up having an accident, a terrible accident. Because of that accident, I ended up in a lot of trouble. The job that I had was pretty far away. There was no way I was going to be able to take buses to come back and forth. That's like a 2 to 3 hour difference. And some days could be even more. So I didn't want to risk it and try to get buses between one place and the other. I was going to end up stuck in the middle at some point in the middle of the night. I was doing weird shifts as a security guard. You don't do a lot of shifts that are stable. When you do, you have been in the company for a very long time. So it was really bad. It was really bad, and I ended up losing that job again, and then I also ended up losing that apartment that I had at that time, and it was really bad. Because I was so disconnected from the world, I wasn't really paying attention that it was a bad time for the economy, and I didn't understand many things. I didn't understood banking. I didn't understood anything that was happening, not even politics. So I was not really paying attention to any of it. After a while, I decided, well, it is time to go to Florida, and I moved with my brother. My brother has separated himself from my mom, and he stayed in his own place. So he gave me some room, and we stayed in the same bedroom. And from there on, I was decided that I'm gonna get a job, and I was still depressed. I was still bummed out. Everything felt like it was my fault, and I'm sinful, and that's the reason why everything is happening to me. So I found a job, started working, kept going to the same congregation that my mom was here in Florida, and then I ended up getting reestablished, waiting 6 months. But when you come back for a second time, it's not the same. People don't look at you the same way. They look at you like God can forgive you, but they can't. And that's exactly how I felt. It was almost as if the shame was following me everywhere I go. So I didn't really make a lot of friends. They always avoid the dark cheap and any sort of possibilities that it might take you away. And Puerto Ricans are quite warming and welcome. And at the same time, they're up in your shit, trying to tell you what to do, what not to do, how to do it, how not to do it. So when you come to America, everything was a little bit more distant. Everybody has that sort of mentality of, I take care of myself, you take care of you, and we're good. Everything is great, it's fine. But to me, it felt like everyone was so distant. So time passes by. I make a couple of friends, not too many, not like before. And I meet another girl, also another Bible study. I want to say I have something for Bible studies, right? So I ended up hooking up with that girl too. After a while, her mom finds out, and then she kicked her out of her place. By that time, I had my own place, and she ended up staying with me. So I brought it up to the elders, asking, hey, I need some help. Me and her, we really messed up this time, but I know you guys can help me. The week before, I told them I was doing a Sunday study of the Watchtower that was talking about how when you bring your sins forward to the elders, they will forgive you because you have brought it forward. And that's pretty much what it was being told to the elders. And I felt so confident. I was like, I did messed up this time, so I'm gonna go ahead and do things right this time. I'm gonna tell them. So I told them, and I told them the whole story. Very uncomfortable questions, just like the first time. I tried not to give up so much information this time because I didn't feel the same way as the first time. I was like, if I'm gonna get this fellowship, I'm not so sure. Why would I tell them? Although I don't think I'm gonna get this fellowship. I mean, that's what they said last week in the Watchtower, right? Sure enough, I get this fellowship again. That to me felt like a bucket of cold water. It was almost as if everything that I've tried, for as good as it may have been, it was futile. It felt like there was no real forgiveness. It felt like it was the reasons that they gave me. Ugh, it wasn't really that fact that I may have sinned. It was more on the case of, well, you did it once, so we don't want to deal with this situation anymore. So we're going to disfellowship you and just go through the safe route. And when they gave me that, I was like, what? Are you serious right now? You trying to tell me that the reasons why you're doing it is out of your own convenience? At this time, I was not only in tears because I felt so sorry about everything that I did, but now I'm kind of angry. Now I'm kind of disappointed. Now I'm kind of feeling that this is not fair. And I could have fought it. I could have written a letter yet again. And I knew I could have. But I decided not to. I was like, no. If this is going to continue on happening, I'm just not going to come back. Because if it were to be the case that I come back to the organization and I gave this fellowship a third time, I just going to stay out. And for the longest time, I moved from one side to another, and I never came back. I never came back to one meeting. Then I moved to a different area. I started working my way up. That was my focus. It was moving up and finding better jobs every time as much as possible. I didn't want it to repeat the same thing that happened to the first fellowship. I ended up pretty much on the street with nothing. That was my go-to move. Do not go back to that place. And thankfully to God, I guess I never did. But now looking back, I can see how it was all my very own effort. It was all me putting my mindset in the right place. In the right place, it was going to take me somewhere. And working hard. And really keeping goals in place to help you move forward. So even though I never came back, I kind of always told myself some sort of story about how either I pass to the new world, knowing that Jehovah knows my heart, that I'm a good person, or I don't pass, and then, well, that's okay with me too. One way or the other, I have to reduce the amount of stress, the amount of depression, the amount of pain that I was in. And that was the only way that I could have done it. By just letting it go. I just had to let it go. If it was my fate, if it wasn't my fate, one way or the other, it was out of my hands. It would have been in Jehovah's hands, right? So I had to let it go. If I die, if I live, I cannot continue on living with this sort of pressure behind my back. Well, I was physically out, kind of mentally in. For quite a few years, I never went. And I ended up meeting my girlfriend outside of the organization, and she and I ended up living together. And I remember last year, she told me she was pregnant, and then I was like, whoa. I was not expecting that. It was really hard. I always told myself that if I ever had any kid, and I avoided it for the longest time, if I ever had any kid, it was going to be a kid that was going to live in paradise and everything was going to be fine. That way he don't have to, or she don't have to live in this sinful world, and then once I pass to the new world, they're going to be born in a perfect world. And I created this whole sort of stories. I don't know if you ever had, but I did. And so I told myself that sort of stories in order to be able to walk away from all the pressure that I had on my shoulders. And I remember that my My girlfriend tells me she's pregnant, and I felt like I failed my child. I felt as if every sort of promise and everything that I was supposed to do right, I failed at it. I felt like a failure, and that's exactly how I felt most of my life. It didn't matter how much I decided that I wanted to do. There was always some sort of wall, some sort of like contradiction, or someone telling me that I shouldn't go that far. It's almost as if your life is telling you move forward, move forward, move forward, and you let the opinion or the suggestions of someone that is already established, and they have a job and they have a career and they sometimes even have business, and they tell you no, that just don't run for it, don't go for college, don't go and do that job, don't go and do this job, and it felt controlled. That's exactly how it felt. It was controlled, and I hated it. I always wanted to do a lot of things, push myself further, and be better every time. That was always my single most important goal in life. It was be better every time. But unfortunately, it translated to be better in the organization. And for as much as you want to be better in the organization, you can move up, but it doesn't make you better at anything. And then after my girlfriend told me she was pregnant, we got up together and we went to her dad's house, and it was a scary situation. Not lying. And I had to tell them straight to the face, even though we weren't married, because they're Christian, they're actually Baptist, that she was pregnant. And of course there was a little bit of tension there, but we started questioning about our beliefs and how I see things, and you want to know how you're going to raise your child, and your wife want to know what sort of things you're going to tell them or how you're going to raise them. And her dad brought up to me some things that I was like questioning myself, and I would have never figured out. And they see God as a Trinity, and I always saw God as a one. And that was one of the things that I never got quite well, is because the organization doesn't really explain to you where does the Trinity come from. It also doesn't tell you where all these other religions come from, their history, their background. So I felt intrigued, and I felt that I needed to find out what exactly was going on. And because, Jehovah's Witnesses have the truth, so I have to go out there and find information and prove me wrong. And that's how it started all going down the rabbit hole. One of the many things that as I was searching, it wasn't just about where the Trinity came from, but I started finding debates between one side of Christianity and another. And it was really hard, but at some point I found a Jehovah's Witness debating a Trinitarian. And I was like, oh, that's so great. This is going to be awesome. It's going to burn him. And not to say that I'm a Jehovah's Witness, but this Jehovah's Witness, he clearly shut him up in one sense or another. And that's exactly how I felt. It was like, oh, answer that one. But he couldn't answer that question, and I felt like, oh yeah, this is why the organization's gotta be right. It's gotta be right. They know what they're doing. And keep finding other videos and other sort of information, and then keep digging into the history of the Bible. And as I was digging through the history of the Bible, I see this young man whose channel is John Cedars. Talk about the rabbit hole now. And then he started explaining how he was a Jehovah's Witness and the history behind the beliefs and how they started coming up with all these things. And a lot of times you see videos of other Jehovah's Witnesses that are kind of like ranting about oh no, they're asshole, they're this, they're that. And when you have that sort of videos, you don't really tend to automatically believe or really listen. They're like, oh yeah, we're assholes, yeah, everybody thinks so. So you kind of like dismiss it. You continue on with your life. It doesn't matter what you see on YouTube, you're not gonna believe because you're told to not believe. Or you're told to expect that sort of thing. So you already expect that to happen. So it doesn't really help. And but what was interesting to me was the facts. And that's the thing that caught my attention about his video. It was that he wouldn't say something without any fact, without having a magazine or having a book or making a research. And that's when I was like, wow, you're absolutely right. There's some weird, interesting things on this. I also was looking for maybe another Jehovah's Witness that may have felt the same situation that I was, where you go to the elders, you tell them, they still dismiss you and whatnot. I never found anyone that had an exact situation like it. It was always something different. It was always something about, oh, well, I was just doing my skateboard and then going out skateboarding, and sometimes I miss their meetings, and then I got this fellowship, and I was like, wow. But I was never felt that connection until I started listening to John Cedars. And then John Cedars brought up many times something about the Royal Commission. And I was like, oh, what happened in the Royal Commission was one of the things that pulled me out of the organization. And then somebody else brought it up in another video. I want to say it was Fifth. Fifth was talking to someone else, kind of making an interview, and they brought up Royal Commission. And that's when I really started looking at the Royal Commission. And I looked it up on YouTube. And then I found the videos. And I was finding the videos about how the elders were being indicted and whatnot. And I was like, wow. So they're getting indicted because of this? And then I see the video of Jeffrey Jackson. And Jeffrey Jackson makes the appearance. I watched the whole video up to the point that they I forgot his name, the guy in the counterpart, the lawyer, he started asking him, so do you consider yourself the only organization in the world that happens to be the spokesperson of Jehovah God or something like that? And I was like, yeah. And he says, well, that would be presumptuous. My mind blew up. I was like, what did you just say? Now I laugh. At that time I was enraged. Because you know the answer to that question. When you're inside the organization, you know the answer. You don't say no. You don't say maybe. It was really striking to me. It really got to me. It really started opening my eyes. But the reason why I was doing all the research and really looking around is because before I completely dismissed the organization, I really wanted to make sure that what I was finding was accurate, was evidential, and there's no kind of like the government in the US says, beyond reasonable doubt. And that right there was the nail in the coffin. After that, I continue on watching other videos and continue on informing myself. And one of the things that helped me walk away from the organization, best advice I can give you right now is, you gotta know. You gotta know about everything going on around you. When you don't know, and you don't want to know about things, you want to leave God to be a mystery, or you want to leave religion to be something that you do and you don't question, things happen for you. People start making that sort of decisions around you that will affect your life and you got no saying because you don't know, and you don't inform yourself, and you don't vote against or for, and you end up not doing anything about your life. And unfortunately, I've seen that it's not just a thing that it's unique to the Jehovah's Witness organization. It happens in the world as well. There's a lot of people out there that don't do anything with their lives. They just don't want to know. They don't want to inform themselves, and they want to go around blaming somebody else about the conditions where they're at, or blame everyone else, but they don't inform themselves. They don't find ways to cope, find new hope, find new ways of living life. When you don't find a new way of living life, you end up like me, making the same mistake all over again. And I feel bad that sometimes there are some people that leave this cult and then enjoy none of it. Because that's what we do as humans. We have an empty place in our hearts, or in our emotions, in our head. We try to fill it. But sometimes we try to fill it with something that it feels familiar. So if you ever leave the Jehovah's Witness and join the Mormons, I looked into the Mormons as well. It's not going to take you anywhere. And many other things I've also found. Many other things have shocked me. I found a lot about so many parts of history. And I decided to do this video. I decided to start sharing that sort of things. Because when you leave the Jehovah's Witness, you need some sort of motivation. You need to be informed. You need to learn what sort of things are really out there. And how many of the behaviors that you find in Jehovah's Witness, they're not unique to them. They're out there. And there are other groups that behave in the same manners, in the same ways. And they're also persuasive. And when you don't know, you shoot yourself in the leg before you even start the race. So, here's my story. My name is Jose Vidal. And if you like this video, please like. Thank you.